integrating technology with human evolution seems like such a good sell for man. You're building a better you. But the fact is, it's just simply not true.
Human augmentation. Surf industry. Rising deaths on the street.
This is a business that's driven by fear. If I don't improve myself, if I don't augment myself, then I'll be less intelligent, less capable, less strong than the rest of the human race.
Augmentation is a huge business for these corporations, and we're paying for it by sacrificing our humanity and freedom.
Violent clashes. Reports of human experimentation. We have to ask the question, are we playing God?
We've been integrating ourselves with technology for decades now, replacing damaged limbs with mechanical limbs, implanting data chips into our bodies, which give away huge amounts of information to governments and corporations all across the globe.
At no point have they thought about the consequences of their actions. They actively encourage you to exchange your perfectly functional body parts for upgraded augmentations. What they're doing is ethically and morally wrong, and they should be brought to justice.
Growing numbers of people experiencing
Today, Surf Industries signed a new historic military deal.
I know that they are creating mass quantities of military-grade augmentations. I've seen testing on them, and it's very scary types of alterations.
They want to systematically turn us into machines and pump us full of their drugs.
You have to take Neuropozyne, one of the most dangerous and addictive drugs that exists in the world today.
You'll have to take this drug for the rest of your life. If you don't, your body will reject your augmentations. It's a drug that's priced so highly that we are now seeing cases of high-profile people who are now out on the streets, and they are begging. They are begging for drugs. They'll have their technology in your body. They can have the power to turn off your limbs, the potential to turn off your eyes. They'll be able to send messages to your brain and control your thoughts as if they have the power of God.
If you don't take their drugs, they're gone.
People have been abused, kidnapped, experimented on. Any kind of resistance or opposition is met with fierce and brutal terror on the people. When does this stop? When will you stand up and fight?
They're killing our humanity!
Grace, tell me what happens when this all falls apart.
Nothing happens. There's no warning. Day one, everything just stops. No phones, no power, cities go dark.
Grace, stay there.
They told us we had to leave. Just until things got back to normal. But normal was never coming back. Day two, they launched nukes. They thought they could contain Legion with tactical EMP strikes. And by day three, the whole world was at war. Millions died. And then, when the food ran out, billions. Some men killed my dad over a can of peaches. Sorry. When we thought the worst was over, then Legion started to hunt survivors.
I mean, it's not stopping. It's like something out of a science fiction movie. You turn on the television and see what these towns look like in cities. When you see a 30-year-old woman standing there in front of a tank with a rifle, I mean, talk about what happened in Tiananmen Square. That's Tiananmen Square squared. And so yesterday I announced on behalf of the American people, we're prepared to provide another $1 billion, as the ambassador pointed out, $1 billion for those who fled and those who are affected around the world. We were visiting our troops and they had pizza pie with hot peppers on it.
The plan to create unified global government, currency, and legal structures is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented in British imperial conferences and American think tank papers throughout the 20th century. David Rockefeller, grandson of the richest man in the world at the turn of the 20th century and a chief benefactor of the Democratic Party, admitted, "Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it."
I used to say to him, what's the point of all this? You have all the money in the world you need. You have all the power you need. What's the point? You know, what's the end goal? And he said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society, to have the bankers, the elite people, you know, the bankers and some governor controlling the world.
The radio frequency identification chip, which is about the size of a grain of rice, allows users to open doors, swap contact details, and use the photocopier.
These things, it appears to me, began out of pure avarice, where bankers decided they had a very good deal. They could collect interest on money that they were creating out of nothing. And that gave them great influence and power over the kings and the princes of the world, who always were needing money to finance their wars and their pleasures.
They're bringing in these central banking digital currencies. Why is that word programmable in there? So what they said in that article, and the Chancellor put a video out saying this as well, they've said that this money that you will earn from work, instead of having paper money, you have this digital money. It's programmable so that you can't buy certain foods, or if you do something that your employer doesn't like, it's all in that article. You won't be able to spend your money. In other words, it's not money. They're vouchers. They're like food vouchers. And they can be programmed so that, like the Chinese social credit system, that if you try and use them on a certain thing, it won't work. You say you want to buy a burger and they want you to buy bugs, which is one of the examples used. If you start to try and buy unhealthy meat, it just won't work. You tap your card, you can't buy the thing because you've met your quota that month of burgers. You have to buy something like a vegan meal.
So it won't just be money in the sense of the way we have dollars or pounds today.
Yeah.
It'll be something that's controlled in terms of your ability to distribute it.
Which is why I'm calling it a voucher. It's a coupon.
Don't say you weren't warned. MasterCard and the United Nations are joining forces to monitor the carbon effect of your credit card purchases. And then you'll hit your carbon max and it'll stop working. Hey, of course it's voluntary for now. The new credit card is called Doconomy. And on the back of the card, it's going to say, I am taking responsibility for every transaction I make to help protect the planet. This is a social credit score, and it's a proof of concept. The Doconomy CO2 credit card website claims it is the largest initiative ever taken by a bank in educating its users on the impact of consumption. They say themselves they want to set a global standard for carbon calculations. That's the key. Once they have their numbers in place, then they can give every single purchase you make a score and punish you directly. This is what China does. And of course, this will only be enforced on you and me and any businesses that don't go along with their scheme. And banks are going to enforce it.
So it started off as a good con game, I think. But as it became the passage of time and they could see where this was going, they were able to buy governments. They could own governments because they could buy their kings and the queens. And later on, they bought their elected representatives, like you buy hamburger in the grocery store. Just how much money does it take? Oh, $5 million for this guy, $9 million. Okay, do it. Get him on board. So they bought up governments, and suddenly then the game changed. It wasn't just how much money you could make and how big your yacht was going to be, but in terms of controlling all of mankind. And then generations passed, and new generations came in, and technology developed, and people came on the scene and were getting this idea about transhumanism, things that almost are beyond the pale of imagination. They want to change humanity. They don't like humans the way they are. Humans are too independent. They're too hard to control. You know, all this stuff costs money that they're doing. They have to brainwash us. They have to buy us off. They have to threaten us. They have to kill some of us. They have to scare us to death. This takes a lot of money. But they could just reprogram humankind into a new creature that you could just program him like you program your computer and say you will turn on at 7:15 in the morning and turn off at 11:30 at night. And you don't have to explain why. Just say you will do it. That's what they want humans to do.
If that sounds far out, just consider that MKUltra involved government mind control programs that worked with private foundations, universities, hospitals, doctors, and scientists, some of whom, immediately after World War II, were already engaged in discussions on the interface between humans and the new computing machines. They called their study cybernetics, and some of them sought to reduce the human brain and nervous system to machine inputs and outputs, thus making the brain programmable.
This new core of knowledge replaced the classical understanding of the brain. It would now be treated as a biocomputer, to be scanned, screened, decoded, and reprogrammed.
2003 is that there was a mega conference in Hawaii, a meeting of all the top digerati, the technology people, the technocrati. And it was sponsored by, of course, the U.S. government, who was promoting the idea that in the coming decades, from 2003 forward, right into our present time, we are going to see a convergence of technologies, of our genetic technology, of our nanotechnology, our neuroscience, and our computer technology. They will all become one technology that converges in human skin. And when I first started on this path, I'm thinking, man, this is really pretty dark stuff. They're talking about imprisoning us in this new orange prison jumpsuit, this new layer of skin that's going to eliminate free will. Yeah, it'll give us super intelligence, superpowers, and all this kind of thing, but the idea of the individual will cease to exist because we're all going to be part of some AI superbrain.
It is a family reunion of the people who monopolized the future, who designed a world that would only work for them.
But he isn't the only oligarch interested in transhumanism. His friend Bill Gates has promoted genetic modification of crops and gene editing in humans. In the 1930s, that was considered eugenics, based in the belief that DNA determines everything from our looks to our intelligence. After the Nazis took that theory to an extreme, eugenics was rebranded as genetic engineering. It's worth noting that Gates' friend Epstein was also interested in genetic engineering, believing he could populate a super race with his sperm. No wonder Epstein sponsored MIT's Media Lab, born of the 1950s cybernetics studies. And what was cybernetics if not based on the desire to steer humans and their social systems using our biology?
So we've got to get people liking one another and working together. And what MindWar is suggesting is that a great deal of the factors which influence people to be this way are at the mechanical level, at the subconscious level, and can be controlled through technology, which is what the book is talking about. The danger of this, of course, is that these same technological controls could be used to control people in a negative way, to make them more antagonistic, which would lead you to an atmosphere something like Orwell's 1984.
As MKUltra experiments with drugs like LSD, electromagnetic radiation, and other technologies were able to demonstrate, to affect the body is to affect the mind. And just like with Plato's metaphor of the cave, mind control is the root of how elites rule a society.
If you want to preserve your power indefinitely, you have to get the consent of the ruled. And this they will do, partly by drugs, as I foresaw in Brave New World, partly by these new techniques of propaganda. They will do it by bypassing the sort of rational side of man and appealing to his subconscious and his deeper emotions and his physiology even. And so making him actually love his slavery. I mean, I think this is the danger, that actually people may be in some ways happy under the new regime, but they will be happy in a situation where they oughtn't to be happy.
But if we create the problem and present the solution, people will demand the solution. Thus we achieve our ultimate goal of having this DNA in every person changed. Well, let's go deeper. What's the goal? What's the purpose? Yeah, you go around and change everybody's DNA. What do they become? They become a hybrid. The insidious part of this is that once a person is injected, almost immediately their DNA undergoes transformation. Almost immediately they lose all awareness of the fact that they've lost their independence, their ability to think on their own, to make decisions on their own, and to affect them on a moral level. Their moral independence, their beliefs, religious, moral, ethical, legal, all of those go away. If you remove the independent thought and that awareness that you've lost your independence is gone, what then do the powers that be do with these new forms of humans, hybrids? They can control them. They can turn them into a serf class. Not S-U-R-F, not surfers, but S-E-R-F, a class of slaves to serve the elite.
You know, when I do my hypnotic show in Las Vegas, Real Hypnosis Really Funny, I don't bring people on stage and immediately hypnotize them to sing like Madonna or strip like Chippendales dancers. It's a small process. So the first thing I've got to do is inspire them to get on stage. Come, enroll yourself, get up on stage. There's going to be great benefits to it. You're going to feel like you slept for 10 hours. You're going to have more fun than anyone in the room. I get them on stage, and then I start getting small controls. Before I even start what they think is the hypnosis, stand up, trade places, move over here, you sit here, you stand behind these people. Because small commitments lead to large commitments. And when I can get somebody used to following little directives and then escalate them further and further and further, they don't realize till they're standing there singing like Madonna, you know, completely naked. How did they get here? Well, it all started when I said, sit down in that exact position.
And there is nothing more hypnotizing on a daily basis than the media we consume. Remember the prophet of the internet, Marshall McLuhan, and his paradoxical warning, the medium is the message.
Marshall McLuhan went to go speak to Bilderbergs long time ago, and because he discovered that when we shape our tools shape us. And that's a very key piece of information because of what's happening and how all these technology companies are ruling over us.
To serve the Ray Kurzweils of the world who want to achieve immortality, but they need to have labor to manufacture, develop all of the technologies. And they have enough technologies now. The technology, the scientific world, if you will, has reached the level where they don't care about hiding it anymore. Their agenda is so far advanced, both politically, philosophically, their sense of morals, and technologically, that no longer are they worried about you and me as the serf class and the coming serf class. They're not worried about what we think. They're not worried about us rebelling. And in fact, we won't rebel, partly because right now we've been so dumbed down through a variety of mechanisms. But once people demand the virus and they truly are dumbed down to where they've lost that awareness that something's happened to me, now they can do what they want with us. They are achieving what I call the hive mentality, like a beehive. Worker bees, soldier bees, serving the queen. The queen, in my estimation, is this elite class that's in power, and it's not the politicians. Forget the politicians. This has nothing to do with Republicans, Democrats, Tea Party, libertarians. It has nothing to do with political structure or classes. It has to do with the small group that is in control and has been in control since ancient times.
First become aware of the kind of Illuminati influence and things like that? Like, what opened your eyes to that?
Just the whole idea of seeing how things are run. If you really listen to the bobbleheads on TV today, especially the ones on the Alphabet Boys, the CNNs, and
exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy. Like bad car salesmen.
Exactly. It's like, come on. Indeed, the Native Americans said it, man. These cats speak with forked tongue. And you can see the lie written all over it. Even the whole idea of the political process, politics meaning the science of governing people. If you look at the whole vote, and I'm truly one of these kind of cats, I know and understand now that the Republicans and the Democrats, they're controlled by, the same people.
So we have these award shows and the Super Bowl halftime shows using these ceremonies which propel and promote certain ideologies. And so it's a ritual to glorify this satanic doctrine. And so it's being used to subconsciously condition the viewers to love this kind of symbolism.
And this surprised me. I only found this out. You're managed by the company you look after S Club 7 and you used to look after the Spice Girls, Simon Fuller. Have they tried to mould you in any way that people ask you to do things to change the way you look or speak or behave?
Yeah, one of them tried to mold me into a big triangle shape, and I went, no, I've got my own style.
And so this guy produced this video where Lady Gaga slips into unconsciousness after being drugged and then is literally sexually assaulted by R. Kelly and the dancers in the video Do What You Want.
Do What You Want sounds like a riff on Do What Thou Wilt, the famous dictum of the secret society, the Hellfire Club, popularized in the 20th century by the self-proclaimed beast of the apocalypse, Aleister Crowley, lodge brother to W.B. Yeats, ironically. Crowley had a huge influence on musicians in the 20th century, including the Beatles and Jimmy Page, who bought Crowley's mansion next to Loch Ness. Crowley's work inspired Anton LaVey to found the Church of Satan and its offshoot, the Temple of Set, as Michael Aquino assumed Crowley's mantle as the Beast 666.
That restaurant with all the pictures up, Sandy was like, Satan is as powerful as God. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He says, why do you think there's so much anger in the world and killing and murder and Satan? And he saw my reaction to it and he kind of lightened up on it.
Ultimately, if I had to compress the ideology of Satanism down to one basic way of looking at the world, it's that I come first before everything else and I don't care who else suffers as long as it's not affecting me. That's Satanism. So I espoused this ideology through writing and music, and eventually some of that work that I had done in music and in writing was recognized by the then high priest of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey. He appointed me to the rank of priest within his organization, the Church of Satan. I began to become aware that these people were not just isolated groups of individuals that were working with hidden knowledge, which is what occultism is. It's knowledge that is not known by the general population about how the human mind works and how the laws of nature work. They were individuals that were working with this knowledge in a very, very tight-knit way, in a network, in a hierarchical system throughout the world, and they were comprised of an eclectic variety of people from every walk of life. You name the social institution, you name the part of our society, and there were Satanists involved in it at high levels and positions of power and influence. They were using this knowledge that they hold about how the mind works to manipulate people, and they were using the knowledge about the laws of nature to basically understand how whole dynamic societal forces work to bring people under their rulership. It wasn't people working separately just for their own personal benefit. It was a tight-knit unit of people throughout our entire society that was working very closely together in a networked, hierarchical, compartmentalized structure that was working toward a common goal. And that goal was to increase their own collective power, the collective power of this worldwide cult, you could call it, at the expense of everyone else's rights and freedoms to eventually create a worldwide dictatorship and worldwide slavery.
You have given us entree to the resources we need in our ongoing quest for multidimensional expansion. And in return, the per capita income of each of you here tonight has grown, in this year alone, by an average 39%.
Following Satan is far more mundane and universal than most people realize or would care to admit.
But I can do anything that I want to. I can pursue any kind of lustful desires that I might feel. I can engage in any activities that are so-called sinful activities and not really worry about any ecumenical councils making it right for me to do these things.
As we've already seen, Satan is an invisible spirit and a master of disguise. His ability to pass himself off as an angel of light can fool the rebellious and the spiritually naive into thinking that black is white, truth a lie, and even that God himself is the one telling them these things. And as for following the devil, many that espouse an openly satanic worldview can tell you that it's nothing like the Hollywood caricature. And that's precisely what makes it so disturbing, as the occult magazine Gnosis acknowledged. If there's anything horrifying in its teachings, it's that these are the principles by which most people live most of the time, usually without admitting it even to themselves. And just what is this core principle by which most people live? Well, in a nutshell, do what you want. Surprised? Well, Anton LaVey wasn't. He understood precisely from where this popular concept had arisen.
And we must, as a Satanist, knowing this, realizing what his human potential is, eventually, and here is one of the essential points of Satanism, attain his own Godhead in accordance with his own potential. Therefore, each man, each woman is a god or goddess in Satanism.
Big Pimpin' really, man, is living life to your fullest potential. I mean, like, whatever you want to do, when you want to do it, you do it, but in the grandest way possible, you know?
And for a god or goddess, what's the ultimate standard for ethics, meaning, purpose, and destiny? You've got it. Whatever you feel is right.
My heart is the ruler of all my being. If my heart tells me it's true, that's good enough for me.
The answers to your problems are in yourself and not in a god or religion.
Marilyn Manson noted the universality of the satanic ethic when he observed, "The idea of Antichrist is an unspoken knowledge that every person has. It's just the acceptance of yourself as a powerful being who can make their own decisions. It's not someone with a 666 on their head." And Satanism is about worshiping yourself because you are responsible for your own good and evil.
What would you define being a Satanist as?
Worship of themselves. You're worshiping yourself when you worship Satan.
Aleister Crowley stated it this way in his infamous Book of the Law: "Every man and every woman is a star or a god." And as we saw earlier, "Do what thou wilt" shall be the whole of the law.
Live by myself, you know, I live by my own values and all that, morals. I set my own ways.
How do you determine what those morals and values are?
Well, I don't know, I just do what's right for myself.
By declaring that each person should walk in their own light, discover and then do their true will, LaVey, Manson, and Crowley, along with Nietzsche and others, have simply been echoing the father of all lies, the one that goes back to the very dawn of human history. Then the serpent said to the woman, "God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Satanism, then, in its essence, is simply each person looking through his or her own eyes for meaning and direction. As our own god or goddess, we're free to do as we will. Theologically, this worldview can be reduced to a single precept: found in the 4th chapter of the Book of Satan.
Say unto thine own heart, I am mine own Redeemer.
Or, to put it in more common terms, the, quote, triumphant strains, end quote, of a song that LaVey and his disciples viewed as one of the most satanic of the 20th century.